All right, so there's a few key things I like to look at in financials, and this is the same for every single company I look at. So some of the things I look at are revenue, income, and I love to look at research and development, see where they're putting their money, and see how that is paying off for the company. I will be looking at a few other things for Apple because I think there's some key points that need to be addressed, but let's hop right into that. So if you notice these numbers up here, they are in millions. So these are actually in hundreds of billions. So we see for total revenues over since 2016, 215 billion, 229 billion, 265 billion, 260 billion, 274. And then you can see that the trailing 12-month revenue is 325 billion. So what I like from this is that every single year besides 2019, which was a weird year for Apple, they are increasing their revenues year over year. So we can see an increase of 15 billion from here to here. We can see an increase of 35 billion from here to here, decrease of 5 billion, and then an increase of 15 billion, and then trailing 12 month we see an increase of 50 billion. And then also, if you do notice, just quickly, that does translate to gross profit as well. That is also increasing over the past 5 years. So what that tells me is that Apple is continuing to innovate, continuing to increase their revenues, continuing to research and develop new products. And that's exactly why I love Apple so much. That is one of the key factors is revenue. Obviously, if a company is decreasing in revenue, that might not be as interesting of a company to invest in. But as long as Apple continues to grow their revenues and grow their income, I think that they are going to continue to reflect that in their stock price. But speaking of income, let's go look at net income. And this is another interesting thing to look at because this is how much money they are actually bringing in after all expenses. So you can see here over the past 5 years, we still see that nice increase. We went from 45 billion to 48 billion to 59 billion. Then 2019, that weird decrease, 55 billion to 57 billion, and then the trailing 12 month is 76 billion. So that is how much cash they are actually bringing in after all other expenses. For comparison, we can jump over to Tesla. I know this isn't really a fair comparison, but let's look at their revenues compared to Apple's operating income. I mean, over the past 5 years, they have increased their revenues, but still nowhere near what Apple even brings in cash. So that's just for comparison. The fact that some people think Tesla could surpass Apple in market cap, only a few years, I think that's a little bit ludicrous. I think that's a little bit, too optimistic. But I still love Tesla. It's not that I don't like Tesla. I'm just making a little bit of a comparison here. We can look at their operating income as well. Negative, negative, negative. Finally posted a profit in 2019, which they did increase pretty dramatically. But we have yet to see, I guess, what Tesla can do in the future. So it's nothing against Tesla. I'm just comparing that to Apple just for your sake. But another thing that I wanted to look at for Apple is how much money they spend on research and development. You can see over the past 5 years, that's this row right here, that they've been increasing steadily over the past 5 years how much money they're putting into research and development. And I think we're starting to see sort of a new Apple coming out over the past couple of years. We're seeing things like the M1 chip, Apple TV, things like that. But I will talk more on that later. But I think that just goes to show how committed Apple is to being innovative, and they want to be here for the rest of time, if I do say so myself. And then, interestingly enough, I also wanted to compare this line to Microsoft, so I pulled that up. Let's go to the research and development costs. So 11 billion, 13 billion, 14 billion, 16 billion, and 19 billion, when compared to 10 billion all the way to 18 billion. Microsoft actually does spend a little bit more on research and development. It seems like a few more million here and there. But the interesting thing to note is that their operating income is actually much lower. So Apple sits on a lot more cash, and what I would like to see Apple do is do something different with that cash. I know it's a lot of cash to figure out what to do with, but interestingly enough, I think that might be better spent somewhere else. But that's just a little side note. I thought it was pretty interesting that Microsoft does spend more in research and development than Apple does. And if you guys have any idea on why that would be sure to let me know down in the comments, because I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't really find anything looking it up. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up here on the financials was the foreign sales, which is down here at the bottom. Interestingly enough, some people are worried about Apple's exposure to the rest of the world outside of the US. They are increasing every single year the amount of foreign sales that they have. I think maybe this needs to expand a little bit, but $165 billion foreign sales, I don't think is anything to worry about. And we can see every single year besides 2019, they have been steadily increasing that. So that's another good sign. So basically, what we can gather from here is that Apple is increasing revenues year over year. They have a strong financial statement every single year. And even when their earnings miss, we see the stock price dip a little bit. But people believe in Apple. I believe in Apple. And I think the financials do back that up. Looking at this article here from January 27th, 2021, from Reuters, this is just continuing on that foreign sales. We can see a 57% rise in China sales for their iPhones. Now, what we would like to see is Apple, begin to push their other products in other countries as well. Things like the AirPods, Apple TV, things like that. But I think maybe Apple at this point is a little bit too reliant on their iPhone sales. That is obviously their biggest source of revenue. But that is where I kind of got some of these ideas from, is this article. Just if you're interested, I will leave it down in the description below if you would like to see that. But they are really just talking about Apple's revenues from China. And so the next thing I wanted to bring up with Apple is their moat. And what a moat is how protected they are from competition. How they can keep their customers, how they can continue growing their business. And I think Apple has one of the biggest moats in the entire world. Coming over here to look at Apple's products, we see, all these products: the iPhone, the Apple Watch, the iPad, Apple TV, HomePods, AirPods, all these other things. And I think every time a customer purchases one of these products, they are more and more likely to stay in the Apple ecosystem. And that is because all of these things integrate so well with each other. If you are an iPhone user, you know that it pairs very well with your MacBook. And if you have an iPad, it pairs very well with your iPhone. The list goes on and on and on. AirPods work better with Apple products. And I think as Apple expands into other areas, especially with things like Apple TV and the different services they use, such as Apple Music, Apple Pay, the App Store, people are just more and more likely to stick with Apple. And I think most people know this. I think most people know that Apple users are very unlikely to switch to, say, Android for their phone or switch to a different laptop. I think just Apple has probably the biggest moat in the entire world as far as companies go. I did just want to briefly mention that because that is a huge safety measure against risk from other competitors. So that is just something I wanted to briefly mention about Apple. But then I wanted to get into some of their newer products and why I think that Apple has even more potential to grow in the future. So jumping over here, looking at Apple, the M1 chip that they recently started making. If you didn't know, they used to use Intel chips, but recently, this year, they started using the M1 chip that they make in-house. So one thing that does for them is that they get to save money on making these things rather than buying them from Intel. If you've seen the prices of some of the new M1 computers, here I'm just going to pull up the M1 Mini because this is a computer that I will probably be buying in the future. You can see here, straight from Apple, the base model is $700, which is very, very cheap comparatively speaking to some of the old Mac Minis that Apple has made in the past. So I think this is going to be probably one of the bigger things in the future, is that they get to save cost and they get to see more margins on their products. So, and the other thing about the M1 chip is that it actually vastly outperforms the Intel chips. I know MKBHD did a video on it, and he went in depth onto why this new chip, the M1 chip, outperformed some of the other Apple models in the past, and coming in at a cheaper price. So that's pretty crazy. I'm definitely going to be buying this once I get enough money saved. But here is another thing that I think Apple has to look forward to in their future. Here you can see the claims up to 3.9 times faster video processing and up to 7.1 times faster image processing. Another thing to look forward to the future is subscription services. A lot of the companies in the world, the bigger ones especially, are looking to get into subscriptions because it is seen as a great thing moving forward. And here we can see that Apple totes 660 million paid subscriptions across services. That includes TV, music, and games. If we scroll down here a little bit, let's look at the service revenue. So 1 year ago, 13.3 billion in revenue for the first quarter of 2020. This year in 2021, the first quarter of 2021, 16.9 billion in the first quarter, and that's just from their services business. You can see Apple TV, Apple Music, App Store, iCloud, and other software sales. These are the type of reasons that companies like Netflix and Disney have seen a large increase over the past couple of years. It's because of these subscription-based services, and the fact that Apple's getting into these, I think, is a great thing. Especially a number like this, 660 million paid subscriptions. That's ridiculous, and I think we can look to see that grow as they expand their services list and they get new customers and pull them into the Apple ecosystem. And then I don't know if you've heard about the Apple Car. I did make a video on it in the past. If you want to look at that, be my guest. If not, that's okay as well. But this is just another potential for Apple in the future. I wouldn't buy it just because of this. I don't think that is enough of a reason, because we don't know exactly how this is going to happen or if it's even going to happen. But it is codenamed Project Titan. It is proven that they have people working on this. We just don't know to what extent it will be. The word on the street is that it will be out by 2024 now. We still don't know. Apple hasn't commented on it, so we can't say for certain. But all that we do know is that there are employees at Apple working on this project. So I think that's just something to keep in mind for the future. Now, before I finish this video for the day, I did want to get into some potential risks. And the risks aren't, as serious as I think some people may make them to seem. Obviously, some people have a problem with the Apple's Moat. Some people have a problem with how Apple does business, dealing with, Chinese cheap labor, that sort of thing. I think that is something that we can look forward to the future, and hopefully Apple kind of, steps up their game in that department. But here is one that does interest me a little bit more, because this can actually directly affect the amount of profits that they get from their App Store. So this is the Epic Games versus Apple trial. And if you don't know what this is about, this paragraph sums it up pretty well. Epic sued Apple in August and accused the tech giant of violating antitrust laws after it yanked the developer's hit video game Fortnite from the App Store. Apple has defended itself by arguing that its in-app marketplace policies are fair and that Epic breached a contract applicable to all developers distributing apps on its mobile services. So basically, Fortnite had in-game purchases. Apple didn't like that, so they took the game down. Currently, Apple charges a 30% commission on in-app purchases. And I think that what we're going to see here is that if this ends badly for Apple, the only thing that might change is that this commission fee will go down. I don't know what it would go down to, but that's what I see happening. So the only thing that I think affects Apple is that they would decrease their revenues from the App Store, which obviously is going to be a lot of money. But I think Apple can make up for this in other ways. If you think of any risks for Apple, let me know in the comments down below. I think this is the biggest one as far as revenues go. But if you can think of anything else, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Alright, like I said, I just started this account yesterday. But I did want to show my retirement account. This is my Roth IRA account. Apple is my biggest holding by a pretty large margin. 15% of my portfolio is going to be Apple for the time being. As I get some more money, I'm probably going to expand into some other businesses, lower some of these actual, targets for my M1 Pi. But you can see below it, we have 12% Google, 10% Microsoft, 9% Disney, 8% Amazon, things like that. So if you want to see any of these companies in this portfolio, a deep dive like I did today, be sure to let me know down in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned some new things about Apple. If you have any questions, comments, be sure to let me know. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like, and consider subscribing so you never miss another video like this. Other than that, this is Gardner Investing, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching.